Uncle, please tell me this is a mistake. You can't be serious. My father loved me. He raised me all my life.
Love doesn't change the facts, Amanda. The documents don't lie. You are not my brother's biological daughter.
No. You're lying. My father called me my adorable every single day. He taught me his business because I was his only child.
Maybe he loved you, but that doesn't make you his daughter.
Stop saying that. My father would never hide something like this from me.
Read them yourself. The truth is right there.
No, this can't be true. Daddy, why?
You have 3 days to pack your bags and leave this mansion.
Leave? This is my home. I was born here.
You heard me.
Not anymore.
Please, where do you expect me to go? I have just buried my father. Have you no mercy?
Mercy won't change the law. Everything here now belongs to me.
Daddy, why did you leave me? Why didn't you tell me the truth if this was real? Why did you leave me alone with these people?
Enough crying. Pack your things before I throw them outside myself.
I swear before God, if my father truly loved me the way I know he did, one day the truth will come out.
Chief Ojukwu was one of the richest and most respected businessmen in Lagos. People knew his name everywhere because he owned a large manufacturing company, beautiful hotels, shopping plazas, office buildings, and many expensive houses in different parts of Nigeria. Every morning, long lines of workers entered his company with smiles because he was not only wealthy but also kind. He believed that every worker deserved respect, no matter their position. Whenever he visited his company, he greeted the security guards, shook hands with cleaners, and encouraged his managers to treat everyone fairly. Many people wondered why such a wealthy man remained so humble. Some said it was because life had once broken his heart. Many years earlier, Chief Ojukwu had lost the love of his life, his beautiful wife, Rosaline. She died shortly after giving birth to their only child, a little baby girl named Amanda. Her death left a wound in his heart that never truly healed. There were days when he sat quietly in his room, looking at Rosaline's framed photograph with tears filling his eyes. Although the pain never disappeared, he made a promise beside his wife's grave. "Rosaline," he had whispered softly years ago, "I promise you that I will love our daughter enough for both of us. She will never lack love as long as I am alive." From that day onward, Amanda became the center of his world. He never remarried because he believed no one could ever replace Rosaline in his heart. Instead, he poured all his love, attention, and care into raising Amanda. As the years passed, Amanda grew into a beautiful young woman with a warm smile that reminded everyone of her late mother. She was intelligent, calm, respectful, and humble despite growing up in great wealth. She never looked down on anyone because her father had taught her that character was more valuable than money. Whenever people visited the mansion, they often said, "Chief, you have raised a wonderful daughter." Chief Ojukwu would smile proudly before replying, "She is my greatest blessing." Amanda had completed her university education with excellent grades, yet she never behaved proudly. She still greeted the domestic staff every morning with kindness. "Good morning, Grace," she would say cheerfully whenever she entered the kitchen. "Good morning, my dear Amanda," Grace would reply with a smile. Grace had worked for the family for nearly 15 years as the cook. She loved Amanda like her own child. Esther, the cleaner, always admired Amanda's humility. "You are different from many rich children," Esther once said while dusting the living room. Amanda smiled gently. "My father always says that respect costs nothing but means everything." Musa, the elderly gatekeeper, often watched Amanda greet visitors politely instead of acting proudly because of her father's wealth. Kule, Chief Ojukwu's longtime driver, also respected Amanda deeply. He had driven her to school since she was a little girl and had watched her grow into a responsible young woman. Every member of the household loved her because she treated them like family instead of servants. The Ojukwu mansion stood in one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in Lagos. It was a magnificent white building surrounded by green lawns, colorful flowers, and tall palm trees. Luxury cars filled the spacious garage. But despite the beauty and wealth surrounding her, Amanda remained simple. She enjoyed spending quiet evenings with her father more than attending expensive parties. Every evening, immediately after Chief Ojukwu returned from work, he would follow the same routine. He would freshen up, change into comfortable clothes, and ask one simple question. Where is my adorable? Before anyone could answer, Amanda would usually appear with a bright smile. I am here, Daddy. Chief Ojukwu would open his arms and Amanda would hug him warmly. How was your day, my adorable? He would ask. It was good, Daddy. How was work? Amanda would reply. Busy as always, but seeing you makes the stress disappear. Those words never changed. They became part of their daily routine and everyone in the house smiled whenever they heard them. After dinner, father and daughter would usually sit together in the beautiful garden behind the mansion. The garden overlooked a small fountain surrounded by colorful flowers. Sometimes they sat under a large umbrella while enjoying the cool evening breeze. Other times, they sat inside Chief Ojukwu's private studio where shelves filled with books lined the walls. Unlike many wealthy fathers who kept business matters secret, Chief Ojukwu wanted Amanda to understand every part of the family business. He believed knowledge was the greatest inheritance he could leave behind. One evening, he placed several files on the table before Amanda. Come and sit down, my adorable, he said with a smile. Amanda sat opposite him and opened one of the files. Today, Chief Ojukwu began, I want to teach you about leadership. Amanda listened carefully. A good leader, he continued, does not shout at workers because he is rich. A good leader listens before making decisions. If your workers are happy, your business will grow. Amanda nodded slowly while writing notes inside her notebook. Daddy, she asked, what should I do if someone disappoints me? Chief Ojukwu smiled. That depends on the situation. If it is a mistake, teach them. If it is wickedness, discipline them fairly. Never allow anger to control your decisions. Amanda looked at him with admiration. I learn something new every day from you. Chief Ojukwu laughed softly. One day, all these companies will need someone wise to lead them. Wealth without wisdom does not last. On another evening, he spread several company reports across the table. These papers show how each company performed this month, he explained. Amanda looked through the reports carefully. This hotel made more profit than last month, she observed. Chief Ojukwu smiled proudly. Excellent, you noticed that quickly. Amanda pointed at another page. But this manufacturing company spent more money than expected. Chief Ojukwu nodded. Very good. That is exactly why I enjoy teaching you. You pay attention to details. Sometimes their conversations lasted for hours. They discussed honesty, responsibility, investment, customer satisfaction, employee welfare, and even how to remain humble despite wealth. Amanda enjoyed every lesson because she genuinely wanted to make her father proud. One evening, after closing the last file, she smiled at him. Daddy, why do you teach me all these things? You are still strong and healthy. Chief Ojukwu became quiet for a few seconds before replying gently. Life is unpredictable, my adorable. Nobody knows tomorrow. I pray I live for many more years, but wisdom says we should always prepare for the future. Amanda frowned. Please don't say that. I don't like hearing anything bad happening to you. Chief Ojukwu reached across the table and held her hand. Nothing will happen today. I simply want you to become confident enough to manage everything whenever the time comes. Knowledge gives courage. Amanda squeezed his hand tightly. I promise I will always make you proud. Chief Ojukwu smiled warmly. I already am proud of you. The love between father and daughter was obvious to everyone who knew them. Business associates often admired how much time Chief Ojukwu spent with Amanda despite his busy schedule. One afternoon, during a meeting, One of his friends laughed and said, "Chief, you spend more time with your daughter than with your business." Shifojuku smiled proudly. Businesses can be rebuilt if they fail, but lost time with family can never be recovered. His friends nodded in agreement because they knew he truly meant every word. While happiness filled the Ojuku mansion, another heart was quietly filled with bitterness. Shifojuku's younger brother Obiora visited the mansion often. To everyone around him, he appeared friendly, respectful, and caring. Whenever he arrived, he smiled warmly. "Big brother," he would shout happily before embracing Shifojuku. "It is always good to see you." Shifojuku trusted him completely. "You are always welcome, Obiora." Amanda also respected her uncle because she believed he genuinely loved the family. "Good evening, uncle," she would say politely whenever he visited. "Good evening, my dear Amanda," Obiora always replied with a fake smile. But once he left the mansion and entered his own car, the smile disappeared from his face. His thoughts became dark. As his driver drove through the streets of Lagos, Obiora often stared through the window with anger burning inside him. "Why does my brother have everything?" he muttered to himself one evening. "Why should he own companies, hotels, and houses while I have so much less? I should be the wealthy one." His jealousy grew stronger each time he visited the magnificent mansion. Seeing Chifojuku's success filled him with bitterness instead of happiness. Even Amanda's kindness irritated him because he believed that one day she would inherit everything he secretly wanted for himself. Yet, he never allowed anyone to see his true feelings. Whenever he stood before Chifojuku, he smiled, laughed, offered help, and acted like the most loving younger brother anyone could wish for. Deep inside, however, Obiora patiently waited for the day an opportunity would present itself, believing that sooner or later, his brother's enormous wealth would somehow become his own. The evening sun spread its golden light across the beautiful garden behind the Ojuku mansion, making the flowers shine as a gentle breeze moved through the trees. It had become another peaceful evening, just like many others before it. Chifojuku had returned home from work, changed into comfortable clothes, and was now sitting with Amanda at their favorite round table beside the small fountain. Grace had just served them fresh fruit juice and light snacks before quietly leaving them alone. Amanda smiled as she looked at her father. "Daddy, you look tired today." Chifojuku laughed softly. "I had several meetings today, my adorable. Running many companies is not as easy as people think." Amanda smiled. "Then maybe you should take some days off and rest." He shook his head with a smile. "I wish I could, but business never sleeps." Amanda picked up her glass of juice. "Well, at least you are home now." Chifojuku nodded happily. "Yes, and this is always my favorite part of the day." They sat quietly for a few moments, listening to the sound of the fountain while birds flew across the evening sky. After taking a deep breath, Chifojuku looked at Amanda with a serious expression. "My adorable, there is something important I need to tell you." Amanda immediately noticed the change in his voice. "What is it, Daddy?" she asked. Chifojuku folded his hands on the table. "Tomorrow morning, I will be traveling to Abuja." Amanda looked surprised. "Abuja?" she repeated. "Yes," he replied. "There is a very important business meeting that I cannot miss. Investors from different parts of the country will be there, and we need to discuss a new project that could expand our company even more." Amanda nodded slowly. "How long will you be away?" Chifojuku smiled gently. "Just 1 week. My flight has already been booked and everything is ready." Amanda's smile slowly disappeared. "1 whole week?" she asked quietly. "That is a long time." Chifojuku chuckled. "It will pass quickly before you even notice." Amanda leaned back in her chair and folded her arms playfully. "Who will teach me business every evening while you are gone?" she asked with a small smile. Chifojuku laughed loudly. "You see, that is exactly why I have been giving you those company files to study." Amanda pretended to sigh. "Reading those files alone is not the same as sitting here and listening to you explain everything." Chifojuku smiled proudly. "I know, but this will be a good opportunity for you to study on your own. Every successful leader must learn to think independently. Amanda nodded. I will try my best. Chief Ojukwu pointed gently at her. Not just try, I know you can. Amanda smiled again. You always believe in me, because you give me every reason to believe in you. He stood up and walked toward the fountain before looking back at Amanda. Remember the files I gave you yesterday? Amanda nodded. Yes. Continue reading them while I'm away. Pay special attention to the reports from the manufacturing company and the hotel division. Write down any questions you have, and when I return, we will discuss everything together. Amanda smiled. That sounds like homework. Chief Ojukwu laughed. It is homework. Amanda shook her head playfully. You never stop teaching me. Never, Chief Ojukwu replied. One day, all these businesses will need someone honest, wise, and kind to lead them. I want you to be ready. Amanda became quiet for a moment before speaking softly. Daddy? Yes, my adorable? Promise me you will come back safely. Chief Ojukwu looked at her lovingly and smiled. Of course I will. It is only 1 week. Amanda forced herself to smile, but inside she suddenly felt uneasy. She could not explain why. She simply wished he was not traveling. As darkness slowly covered the sky, they continued talking about life, business, and the future. Later that night, Amanda stood outside her father's bedroom door. Good night, Daddy. Chief Ojukwu smiled warmly. Good night, my adorable. Sleep well. You too. Neither of them knew those would be the last words they would ever exchange. Before sunrise the following morning, the mansion was already busy. Grace prepared breakfast in the kitchen while Esther cleaned the living room. Musa opened the main gate and Kunle polished the black luxury SUV that would take Chief Ojukwu to the airport. Amanda woke up earlier than usual because she wanted to see her father before he left. She walked downstairs wearing simple clothes and found him finishing his breakfast. Good morning, Daddy. Chief Ojukwu smiled brightly. Good morning, my adorable. Come on, have breakfast. Amanda sat beside him, but she hardly touched her food. Chief Ojukwu noticed immediately. What is wrong? He asked. Amanda forced a smile. Nothing. I just wish you are not traveling. He reached across the table and gently held her hand. I understand, but I will be back before you know it. Amanda nodded silently. After breakfast, Kunle carried Chief Ojukwu's suitcase outside. Sir, everything is ready, he announced. Thank you, Kunle, Chief Ojukwu replied. He turned toward Amanda and opened his arms. Without saying a word, Amanda rushed into his embrace and held him tightly. Chief Ojukwu gently rubbed her back. Why are you hugging me like this? He asked with a small smile. Amanda looked up at him. I just don't want you to go. Chief Ojukwu smiled kindly. My adorable, I have traveled many times before. Amanda nodded. I know. And every single time I returned home safely. She tried to smile. That is true. Chief Ojukwu gently touched her forehead. Take good care of yourself while I'm away. Eat well, sleep well, continue reading your business files, and remember, Amanda smiled through her sadness, to treat everyone with respect. Chief Ojukwu laughed. Exactly. Amanda hugged him one more. I love you, Daddy. Chief Ojukwu looked into her eyes. I love you too, my adorable, more than words can ever explain. He slowly released her and walked toward the waiting vehicle. Before entering the SUV, he turned around and waved. Amanda waved back with a smile that hid her sadness. Kunle started the engine, and the vehicle slowly drove out through the large gates of the mansion. Amanda stood there watching until the car completely disappeared from sight. She remained standing for several minutes, staring at the empty road as if hoping the vehicle would suddenly return. Grace quietly walked beside her. He will be back soon, my dear. Amanda nodded gently. I know. Inside the moving vehicle, Chief Ojukwu looked through the window at the busy streets of Lagos. He smiled to himself as he thought about Amanda. She is growing into a remarkable young woman, he quietly said. Kunle smiled while driving. She really loves you, sir. Chief Ojukwu nodded proudly. She is my greatest blessing. A few hours later, after arriving at the airport, Kunle helped remove the suitcase from the vehicle. Have a safe trip, sir. Thank you, Kunle. Take good care of Amanda while I am away. I will, sir. Chief Ojukwu smiled one last time before walking toward the departure terminal. That was the last time anyone who knew him would ever see him alive. Back at the mansion, Amanda tried to distract herself by reading the business files her father had given her. She sat inside his study, turning one page after another, but she could not concentrate. Everything reminded him of him. His chair, his desk, his handwriting on the documents, even the smell of the room brought tears to her eyes. Around midday, her phone suddenly rang. She looked at the screen and noticed it was an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered. A calm voice spoke from the other end. "Good afternoon. Am I speaking with Miss Amanda Ojukwu?" Amanda sat upright. "Yes, this is Amanda." There was a brief silence before the caller continued. "I am very sorry to inform you that the aircraft carrying your father, Chief Ojukwu, was involved in a tragic accident shortly after takeoff." Amanda's heart immediately began beating fast. What do you mean?" she asked with a trembling voice. The caller spoke gently. "The aircraft crashed, and unfortunately, there were no survivors." Amanda froze. "No," she whispered. "No, that cannot be true." Tears instantly filled her eyes. "You are making a mistake." The voice remained calm. "I am deeply sorry for your loss." The phone slowly slipped from Amanda's hand and landed on the floor. For several seconds, she simply stared into empty space. Then, the painful reality hit her all at once. "Daddy!" she screamed with all her strength before collapsing onto the floor in uncontrollable tears. Her heartbreaking cries echoed throughout the mansion. Grace rushed out of the kitchen. Esther dropped the cleaning cloth she was holding. Musa hurried inside from the gate, and Kunle, who had only recently returned from the airport, came running into the house. They found Amanda crying uncontrollably on the floor. "Amanda!" Grace cried as she rushed to hold her. Amanda could barely breathe through her tears. "Daddy is gone! Daddy is gone!" she cried repeatedly. The entire household broke into tears as the terrible news spread throughout the mansion. After several minutes, Amanda managed to pick up her phone with shaking hands. Only one person came into her mind. She searched for her best friend and pressed the call button. "Hello?" Zina answered cheerfully, unaware of the tragedy. Amanda could barely speak. "Zina!" she cried. "Amanda, what happened?" Zina asked immediately. Amanda struggled to breathe. My father," she burst into louder tears. "His plane crashed. They said he is dead." There was complete silence for a few seconds. "Amanda, don't move," Zina said firmly. "I am coming right now." Without wasting another second, Zina grabbed her handbag, rushed out of her apartment, and hurried toward the Ojukwu mansion as fast as she could. She arrived not long afterward and immediately embraced Amanda, who had cried until her eyes became swollen. Amanda buried her face in Zina's shoulder and cried without stopping. Zina held her tightly, saying softly, "I am here. You are not alone. I will not leave you." She remained beside Amanda throughout the entire night, refusing to let her face such unbearable grief by herself. While Amanda's world had completely fallen apart and the mansion was filled with sorrow, another man sat quietly inside his own house, wearing a fake expression of sadness, before slowly lowering his head and allowing a secret smile to appear on his face. Obiora looked around to make sure no one was watching before whispering to himself, "At last, everything I have ever wanted may finally become mine." The news of Chief Ojukwu's tragic death spread across Lagos and beyond like wildfire. Television stations interrupted their regular programs to report the shocking plane crash that had claimed the life of one of Nigeria's most respected businessmen. Radio presenters spoke about his kindness, newspapers printed his photograph on their front pages, and social media was flooded with messages from people whose lives he had touched. Business leaders described him as an honest man, employees remembered him as a caring boss, and many struggling families cried because they had lost the man who had quietly paid their children's school fees, settled hospital bills, and provided food whenever they were in need. At the Ojukwu mansion, however, the atmosphere was heavy with sadness. Every room felt empty without the cheerful voice of Chief Ojukwu. Amanda could hardly believe that her father was truly gone. She moved slowly through the house, often stopping to stare at his favorite chair, his reading glasses on the table, or the family photographs hanging on the walls. Sometimes she would walk into his study and sit silently in his chair for hours, hoping somehow that he would walk through the door with his usual smile and say, "My adorable, I am home." But each time, reality reminded her that he would never return. Grace cried every morning while preparing breakfast because she still found herself making enough food for Chief Ojukwu before remembering that he was gone. Esther wiped tears from her eyes whenever she dusted his bedroom. Musa stood quietly at the gate every evening, almost expecting to see Chief Ojukwu's black SUV driving into the compound. Even Kule, who had driven Chief Ojukwu for many years, found it difficult to touch the luxury vehicle he had taken to the airport on that painful morning. The mansion that had once been filled with laughter now felt painfully silent. Throughout those difficult days, Zina refused to leave Amanda alone. She stayed in the mansion, comforting her friend day and night. One afternoon, Amanda sat quietly in the garden where she and her father had spent so many evenings together. She stared at the fountain without saying a word. Zina gently sat beside her. "Amanda, you have not eaten anything today." Amanda slowly shook her head. "I'm not hungry," Zina sighed. "You have been saying that every day." Amanda looked at the empty chair across from her. This was where Daddy always sat. Tears filled her eyes again. "Every evening he would call me, 'My adorable.'" Her voice broke. "Nobody will ever call me that again." Zina gently held her hand. "Your father loved you more than anything in this world." Amanda nodded as tears rolled down her face. "I still cannot believe he is gone." Zina hugged her tightly. "I know this is painful, but you are not alone. I will stay with you through everything." Amanda leaned her head on Zina's shoulder and cried quietly. While Amanda continued mourning, another drama was taking place behind closed doors. Obiara wore the face of a grieving younger brother everywhere he went. Whenever visitors came to the mansion to offer condolences, he made sure they saw him crying. He lowered his head, wiped fake tears from his eyes with a white handkerchief, and spoke in a trembling voice. "My brother was too good to leave this world so soon," he would say. "I still cannot understand why God allowed this to happen." Relatives gathered around him, trying to comfort him. "Please be strong," they said. "God knows best." Obiara nodded sadly before pretending to wipe more tears. "I have lost not only my brother, but also my best friend." Many people believed every word he said. They praised him for standing beside Amanda during such a difficult time, not knowing that his heart was filled with joy instead of sorrow. Every evening after returning to his own house, Obiara's fake tears disappeared completely. One particular night, after closing the front door, he looked at his wife Agatha and smiled. Agatha smiled back. "You acted very well today," she said quietly. Obiara laughed. "Did you see how everyone believed me?" Agatha nodded. "Even Amanda thinks you are mourning your brother." Obiara walked toward the sitting room and relaxed comfortably on the sofa. "Let her think whatever she wants," he replied. Agatha sat beside him. "Soon, all that wealth will belong to us." Obiara smiled proudly. "Exactly." Agatha looked excited. "Can you imagine living in that mansion?" Obiara nodded. "Very soon." Agatha continued smiling. "The expensive cars, the companies, the hotels, the houses, everything." Obiara folded his arms confidently. "My brother made one mistake." Agatha looked at him. "What mistake?" Obiara smiled coldly. "He had no son." Agatha nodded slowly. "Only Amanda." Obiara laughed quietly. "A daughter cannot stop me." Agatha lowered her voice. "Do you really think everything will work out?" Obiara looked directly at her. "Leave that to me." His smile became even darker. "I have been waiting for this opportunity for many years." Agatha reached for his hand. "Soon, our suffering will be over." Obiara shook his head. "No, our enjoyment is just about to begin." As the weeks passed, preparations began for Chief Ojukwu's burial. It became one of the biggest funerals Lagos had witnessed in many years. Large tents were erected. Hundreds of chairs were arranged. Security officers controlled traffic around the venue because thousands of people were expected. Newspapers announced the funeral arrangements, and many television stations prepared to cover the event live. On the morning of the burial, people began arriving from different parts of Nigeria. Business executives arrived in expensive vehicles. Politicians came with security escorts. religious leaders dressed in their robes, community leaders, traditional rulers, employees, neighbors, friends, and even complete strangers gathered to pay their final respects to the man whose kindness had touched countless lives. Some elderly women cried openly as they remembered how Chief Ojukwu had quietly supported their families. Former employees spoke about his generosity. One elderly man wiped tears from his face and said, "When my wife needed surgery and I had no money, Chief Ojukwu paid every hospital bill without asking for anything in return." Another man added, "He gave me my first job when nobody else believed in me." Many people nodded sadly because they all had similar stories. Amanda wore a simple black dress and sat quietly in the front row. She looked pale from weeks of crying. Her eyes were swollen, and although many people greeted her with sympathy, she barely had the strength to respond. Zina remained beside her throughout the entire ceremony. Whenever Amanda felt too weak to stand, Zina held her hand. Whenever Amanda broke into tears, Zina hugged her gently. During the church service, the minister spoke warmly about Chief Ojukwu's life. He was a man who understood that true wealth is measured not by how much we own, but by how many lives we touch. Those words caused many people to cry. Amanda lowered her head and whispered, "Daddy, I miss you so much." As the coffin was lowered into the ground, Amanda suddenly became overwhelmed with emotion. "Daddy!" she cried loudly before falling to her knees. Zina quickly knelt beside her. "Amanda!" Amanda stretched her hand toward the grave. "Please don't leave me," she cried. Several women rushed over to comfort her while tears flowed freely from almost everyone present. Even the household staff could not hold back their tears. Grace cried openly. Esther covered her face with both hands. Musa looked away to hide his tears, while Kunle quietly wiped his eyes. Standing nearby, Obiora also appeared to be crying. He held a handkerchief to his face and pretended to sob. People looked at him with sympathy. "He has lost his brother," they whispered. "This must be very painful for him." But hidden behind the white handkerchief was a smile no one could see. Inside his heart, he celebrated because he believed the final obstacle standing between him and unimaginable wealth had been buried that day. After the funeral ended and visitors slowly returned to their homes, life inside the mansion changed in ways Amanda hardly noticed. Still trapped in deep grief, she spent most of her days inside her bedroom or her father's study. She no longer paid attention to what was happening around her. Obiora quietly began visiting the mansion more often than before. At first, everyone assumed he simply wanted to support Amanda, but little by little, his behavior began to change. One morning, he walked into the kitchen while Grace was preparing breakfast. "Grace," he said firmly, "from today, reduce unnecessary spending in this house." Grace looked surprised. "Sir?" Obiora folded his arms. "Food expenses are too high." Grace hesitated before answering. "But sir, Chief Ojukwu always instructed me to buy the best ingredients." Obiora looked at her coldly. "Chief Ojukwu is no longer here." Grace lowered her head immediately. "Yes, sir." Later that afternoon, he found Esther cleaning the living room. "That flower arrangement is in the wrong place." Esther looked confused. "Sir, it has always been there." Obiora frowned. "Move it." "Yes, sir." The following day, he approached Musa at the gate. "Do not allow visitors into this compound unless I approve first." Musa blinked in surprise. "Even if they come to see Miss Amanda?" Obiora looked at him sharply. "Did you not hear what I said?" Musa swallowed nervously. "I understand, sir." Then Obioro called Kunle aside. "From now on, you will not drive any vehicle out of this compound without informing me first." Kunle looked uncomfortable. "Sir, Miss Amanda sometimes needs to go out." Obioro interrupted. You will inform me. Kunle reluctantly nodded. Yes, sir. After Obiora walked away, the 4 staff members quietly gathered in the kitchen. Grace spoke first. Have you noticed how he has started giving orders? Esther nodded. He behaves as though he already owns this house. Musa sighed heavily. Something is not right. Kunle looked worried. Should we tell Amanda? Grace slowly shook her head. She is already suffering too much. Esther agreed. Besides, if we question him now, we may lose our jobs. The others nodded silently because they all depended on their salaries to care for their families. So they chose to remain quiet, hoping things would somehow improve. Meanwhile, Amanda remained completely unaware of the dangerous changes taking place around her. Her heart was still consumed by the pain of losing the only parent she had ever known, leaving her too emotionally exhausted to notice that behind every fake tear Obioro had shed, a far more dangerous plan was quietly beginning to unfold. 2 months had passed since Chief Ojukos was laid to rest, but the pain of losing him still hung heavily over the mansion. The large house that had once been filled with laughter, warm conversations, and the sound of Chief Ojukos calling Amanda "my adorable" now felt cold and empty. Amanda was still trying to accept that her father was gone forever. Every morning she woke up hoping it had all been a terrible dream, but the silence in the house reminded her that reality could not be changed. During those 2 months, Obiora continued visiting the mansion almost every day. To everyone watching from outside, he looked like a caring younger brother helping to manage family matters after a painful loss. However, inside his heart, he was counting the days until he could finally put the next part of his wicked plan into action. One Monday morning, Obiora picked up his phone and called Chief Ojuko's longtime lawyer, Mr. Williams. "Good morning, counsel," Obiora said politely. "Good morning, Mr. Obiora. How are you holding up?" Obiora forced a sad sigh. "We are trying our best. Losing my brother has been very difficult." "I understand," Mr. Williams replied kindly. "May his soul continue to rest in peace." Obiora paused for a moment before speaking again. "I think the family has mourned long enough. It is now time to read my late brother's will. We need everyone to know his final wishes." Mr. Williams nodded on the other end of the call. "I was actually planning to contact the family this week. I will arrange everything." Obiora smiled quietly. "Thank you. Please invite the close relatives, the elders, Amanda, and the household staff. Everything should be done properly." "Very well," the lawyer replied. "I will send out the invitations today." After ending the call, Obiora slowly lowered his phone and smiled to himself. "The time has finally come," he whispered. That evening, Amanda received a call from Mr. Williams informing her that the official reading of her father's will had been scheduled for the coming weekend at the Ojuko's mansion. Amanda thanked him politely before ending the call. Later that evening, she sat quietly with Zina in the living room. "The lawyer called today," Amanda said softly. Zina looked at her. "What did he say?" "The will is going to be read this weekend." Zina nodded. "That is expected." Amanda sighed deeply. "Daddy always told me that he had prepared everything carefully." Zina smiled gently. "Then you have nothing to worry about. Your father was a wise man." Amanda looked toward the family photograph hanging on the wall. "I just wish he was here." Zina gently squeezed her hand. "I know." Meanwhile, inside his own house, Obiora sat comfortably with Agatha. They had just finished dinner when Agatha asked, "Has the lawyer agreed?" Obiora smiled proudly. "Yes." Agatha leaned forward excitedly. "So the will finally be read?" "Exactly." Agatha smiled broadly. "Very soon, everything will belong to us." Obiora shook his head confidently. "Amanda has no idea what is waiting for her." Agatha laughed quietly. "She still believes she's the only heir." Obiora smiled coldly. "By the time I finish, she will walk out of that mansion with nothing." The two laughed together before raising their glasses in celebration. Several days later, the appointed morning finally arrived. The Ojuko's mansion became unusually busy. Luxury vehicles filled the compound as family members, respected elders, business associates, and a few trusted employees arrived one after another. Grace and Esther served drinks and light refreshment, while Musa directed visitors at the gate. Kunle helped elderly guests into the house. The atmosphere was quiet and respectful because everyone understood the importance of the occasion. Most of the guests whispered among themselves. Chief Ojuko's was a wise man, one elderly uncle said. He must have prepared Amanda well. Another man nodded. She's his only child. Naturally, everything will go to her. She deserves it, another relative added. She stood by her father throughout his life. Amanda entered the large living room wearing a simple black dress. She greeted the elders politely before taking her seat beside Zina, who had insisted on attending to support her friend. Zina smiled reassuringly. Everything will be all right. Amanda nodded quietly. Although she was still grieving, she believed her father's wishes would soon be honored. A few minutes later, Mr. Williams arrived carrying a black leather briefcase containing Chief Ojuko's legal documents. Everyone stood to greet him. "Good morning," he said politely. "Good morning, counsel," several voices replied. Mr. Williams walked toward the front of the room and placed his briefcase carefully on the table. He looked around the room before speaking. "Thank you all for coming. We are gathered here today to carry out the final wishes of our late brother, friend and client, Chief Ojuku." The room became completely silent. Amanda lowered her head as painful memories rushed into her mind. Mr. Williams slowly opened the briefcase and removed a sealed envelope. He adjusted his glasses and prepared to begin reading. Just as he was about to speak, a loud voice interrupted him. "One moment!" Everyone turned toward the voice. Obioro slowly stood up from his chair. The lawyer looked surprised. "Is there a problem, Mr. Obioro?" Obioro looked around the room before speaking calmly. "Yes, there is." The room became silent once again. "Before this will is read," Obioro continued, "there is something everyone here deserves to know." Amanda looked at her uncle with confusion. "Uncle, what do you mean?" Obioro slowly walked to the center of the room. "For many years," he began dramatically, "our family has been living with a very big secret." Some relatives exchanged confused glances. One elderly woman frowned. "What secret?" Obioro took a deep breath before speaking slowly. "Amanda," he turned to look directly at her, "is not the biological daughter of my late brother, Chief Ojuku." For a moment, complete silence filled the room. Amanda blinked several times before suddenly laughing nervously. "Uncle," she said with a small smile, "that is not funny." A few people also smiled awkwardly, believing Obioro was making a terrible joke. Amanda shook her head gently. "Please, stop joking." But Obioro did not smile. Instead, he continued staring at her with a cold expression. Amanda's heartbeat began to rise. "Uncle," she whispered, "you are joking, right?" Obioro answered without any emotion. "No." Amanda stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Obioro slowly reached into a brown document file he had brought with him. "I did not come here to argue. I came here with proof." He removed several papers from the file and handed them to Mr. Williams. "Please read these documents aloud so everyone will know the truth." The lawyer looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Obioro, this is highly unusual." Obioro replied firmly, "Please read them." Mr. Williams reluctantly accepted the papers. He adjusted his glasses once again and carefully examined the documents. As he continued reading silently, his facial expression gradually changed from calm to complete surprise. Amanda noticed immediately. "Counsel," she asked nervously, "what is it?" Mr. Williams looked up slowly. "These documents," he paused, "appear to state that Amanda is not the biological daughter of Chief Ojuku." The room immediately erupted into loud whispers. "What?" one relative exclaimed. "That cannot be true," another person shouted. "How is that possible?" Amanda looked from one face to another, unable to understand what was happening. Her hands began to shake. "No," she whispered. "This cannot be happening." Mr. Williams cleared his throat and reluctantly began reading the contents of the documents aloud. Every word that left his mouth felt like a knife cutting through Amanda's heart. The papers claimed that Amanda had no biological relationship with Chief Ojuku and therefore had no legal claim to his inheritance. When the lawyer finished reading, the room fell silent once again. Amanda slowly stood up from her chair. Tears filled her eyes. She looked directly at Obioro. "Tell me this is a lie." Obioro remained expressionless. Amanda took a few trembling steps toward him. "Please tell me this is not true." Obioro folded his arms. "The documents have already spoken." Amanda shook her head repeatedly. "No, my father raised me from birth. He loved me. He called me his daughter every single day." Obioro shrugged carelessly. "That does not change the facts." Amanda's breathing became heavy. "You are lying." Obioro looked at her coldly. "Believe whatever you want." Amanda turned toward Mr. Williams with tears running down her face. "Counsel, please, say something." The lawyer looked deeply troubled. "Amanda, these documents appear to be official records. He paused helplessly. "I honestly do not know what to say." Amanda felt as though the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. Everything she had believed about her life suddenly seemed uncertain. She remembered her father's love, his hugs, his words, and every moment they had shared together. None of it made any sense anymore. Before she could gather her thoughts, Obioro spoke again. His voice became colder than ever. "Since Amanda is not my brother's biological child, she has no legal right to inherit any of his wealth." He looked around the room before continuing. "Therefore, I am giving her a few days to pack her belongings and leave this mansion." Amanda stared at him in complete shock. "Leave?" she whispered. Obioro nodded firmly. "This house no longer belongs to you." Tears streamed down Amanda's face. "Uncle, please." Obioro interrupted her without mercy. "You have only a few days. Pack your belongings and leave peacefully." Amanda could no longer control herself. Her knees became weak as tears poured endlessly from her eyes. The pain she felt at that moment was even greater than the pain she had experienced when she lost her father, because for the first time in her life, she found herself questioning not only her future, but also everything she had ever believed about who she truly was. The meeting ended in complete silence, but Amanda remained standing in the middle of the luxurious living room as though her feet had been glued to the floor. The words Obiora had spoken continued to echo inside her mind. "You are not Chief Ojuku's biological daughter. You have no right to his property. Pack your things and leave." She could hardly breathe. The relatives slowly began leaving the mansion, whispering among themselves. Some looked at Amanda with pity, while others looked confused because they could not believe what had just happened. Mr. Williams, the family lawyer, slowly packed his documents into his briefcase. Before leaving, he walked over to Amanda. "Amanda," he said gently, "I know today has been very difficult." Amanda looked at him with tear-filled eyes. "Counsel, did my father ever tell you anything about this?" Mr. Williams lowered his head sadly. "No, Chief Ojuku never discussed anything like this with me." Amanda swallowed hard. Then how can all this suddenly be true? The lawyer sighed deeply. "I honestly do not know. I wish I had answers for you." Amanda nodded weakly as fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "Thank you for being honest." Mr. Williams placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Please stay strong." Without another word, he quietly left the mansion. Soon, every visitor had gone home. The once crowded living room became silent again. Amanda slowly walked upstairs to her bedroom. As soon as she entered the room, she closed the door behind her and leaned against it. She looked around the beautiful room she had lived in since childhood. Every wall held memories. Every piece of furniture reminded her of her father. She slowly walked to her bed and picked up a framed photograph of herself standing beside Chief Ojuku on her graduation day. She gently touched his smiling face in the picture. "Daddy," she whispered, "please tell me this is not true." Her voice broke. "If I was not your daughter, why did you never tell me?" She sat on the floor beside the bed and hugged the photograph tightly to her chest. "You loved me every single day. You called me your daughter every single day. You called me my adorable." She burst into uncontrollable tears. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her painful cries filled the room throughout the evening. Downstairs, Grace quietly wiped her tears as she listened. Esther stood silently in the hallway, unable to hold back her own tears. Musa removed his cap and lowered his head in sadness. Even Kunle looked helpless. Grace shook her head sadly. This poor girl has lost everything. Esther sighed. First she lost her father, now she has lost her home. None of them knew how to comfort her. Meanwhile, inside another part of the mansion, Obiora and Agatha sat comfortably in the sitting room drinking tea. Agatha smiled proudly. Everything went exactly as planned. Obiora nodded. Even better than I expected. Agatha laughed quietly. Did you see Amanda's face? Obiora smiled coldly. She never saw it coming. Agatha took another sip of tea. Soon, this mansion will finally belong to us. Obiora leaned back comfortably. Very soon. Upstairs, Amanda cried until her eyes became swollen. She kept asking herself the same painful questions over and over again. Why did Daddy never tell me? Why would he hide something so important? If those documents are true, then who am I? She'd buried her face in her pillow and cried until she had no strength left. Late that night, she slowly picked up her phone. There was only one person she wanted to speak to. She searched for Zina's number and pressed the call button. After only one ring, Zina answered. Amanda, she said immediately. Are you all right? Amanda could barely speak because of her tears. Zina, she whispered. Everything is over. Zina immediately sat upright on her bed. What? Amanda struggled to explain through her crying. The lawyer came today. Uncle Obiora said. He said I am not Daddy's biological daughter. There was silence for a few seconds. What? Asked Zina in disbelief. Amanda continued crying. He brought documents. Everyone believed him. He told me to leave the mansion. Zina was shocked. Leave? Where does he expect you to go? Amanda wiped her tears. I don't know. Her voice trembled. I have nowhere to go. Without thinking twice, Zina spoke firmly. You are coming here. Amanda hesitated. No, I don't want to disturb you. Amanda, listen to me carefully. You are my best friend. My house may be small, but there will always be space for you. Amanda remained silent. Zina continued gently. You will stay with me until we figure everything out. Amanda began crying again. Thank you. Zina smiled sadly. Stop thanking me. We are family. Amanda whispered softly. I don't know what I would do without you. Zina replied. You will never face this alone. That night, Amanda hardly slept. She spent hours staring at the ceiling while painful memories of her father filled her mind. Every room in the mansion reminded her of him. Every corner carried a memory she could never replace. Before sunrise the following morning, Amanda quietly got out of bed and opened her wardrobe. She slowly removed her clothes one by one and folded them neatly into 2 large trolley bags. She packed her books, her laptop, a few family photographs, and some personal belongings. Every item she touched reminded her of happier days. When she reached the family photographs, she paused. She sat on the edge of the bed looking at one picture after another. There was a photograph of herself sitting on Chief Ojuku's shoulders when she was 5 years old. Another showed the two of them celebrating her birthday. One showed him proudly hugging her on her university graduation day. Amanda gently smiled through her tears. I don't care what anyone says, she whispered. You will always be my father. She carefully placed the photographs inside one of the bags. A few minutes later, Grace quietly knocked on the bedroom door. Amanda, she called softly. Amanda opened the door. Grace's eyes immediately filled with tears when she saw the packed bags. Are you really leaving? Amanda nodded slowly. I don't have a choice. Grace suddenly hugged her tightly. I am so sorry. Amanda hugged her back. Thank you for taking care of me all these years. Grace wiped her eyes. You are like my own daughter. Soon, Esther also came upstairs. She hugged Amanda tightly. Musa removed his cap respectfully as Amanda came downstairs. Kunle quietly carried the heavy trolley bags outside. None of them could believe what was happening. As Amanda walked slowly toward the front door, Obiora and Agatha appeared in the living room. Agatha folded her arms while watching Amanda. Obiora looked at the bags before speaking coldly. "I see you have made the right decision." Amanda looked at him silently. Obiora continued, "It is better this way. There is no need to create unnecessary trouble." Amanda stared into his eyes but said nothing. She no longer had the strength to argue. Agatha smiled faintly. "We wish you all the best." Amanda turned away without answering. As she stepped outside the mansion, she stopped for one final moment and looked back at the beautiful house where she had spent her entire life. She remembered learning to walk there as a little girl. She remembered celebrating birthdays, Christmas, and many happy moments with her father. Tears slowly rolled down her face again. "Goodbye, Daddy," she whispered quietly. "I don't know if I will ever come back." Kunle carefully placed the bags into a taxi because Amanda no longer had access to the family vehicles. Grace, Esther, Musa, and Kunle stood at the gate with tears in their eyes as the taxi slowly drove away. Amanda looked through the back window until the mansion disappeared from sight. Meanwhile, standing at the entrance of the mansion, Obiora smiled with satisfaction. Agatha quietly slipped her hand into his. "She is finally gone," she said happily. Obiora nodded proudly. "Exactly as planned." The taxi eventually stopped in front of a small apartment building where Zina lived. It was nothing like the luxurious mansion Amanda had left behind. The building was old but clean. Zina rushed outside immediately after hearing the taxi arrive. She embraced Amanda tightly before helping her carry the bags inside. The apartment consisted of only one small room, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom. There was one bed, one small table, 2 plastic chairs, and a simple wardrobe. Amanda looked around quietly. Zina smiled gently. "It is not much." Amanda shook her head. "It is more than enough." Zina held her hand. "From today, this is your home too." Amanda smiled weakly. "Thank you." That evening, Zina prepared rice and stew for dinner. She placed the food on the small table. "Amanda, come and eat." Amanda slowly walked over but simply stared at the food. "I am not hungry." Zina sighed. "You have to eat." Amanda slowly shook her head. "I can't." The same thing happened the next morning. Zina prepared breakfast but Amanda refused to eat. During the afternoon, Amanda remained sitting quietly on the bed, staring through the small window. She hardly spoke. Sometimes she cried silently, sometimes she simply stared into space for hours. Every evening, Zina sat beside her. "Amanda," she said gently one day, "your father would not want to see you like this." Amanda whispered sadly, "I miss him so much." Zina nodded. "I know." Amanda lowered her head. "Everything is gone." Zina gently placed an arm around her shoulders. "No, not everything." Amanda looked at her. "You still have your life, you still have hope, and you still have me." Amanda managed a small smile. "Thank you." For 7 long days, Amanda remained trapped inside sadness. She barely spoke, barely smiled, and barely ate. Every night, she cried herself to sleep. But on the 7th night, after lying awake for hours, Amanda slowly sat up on the bed while Zina slept peacefully beside her. She quietly looked around the small room before speaking softly to herself. Enough. She took a deep breath. Crying will not bring Daddy back. Tears filled her eyes once more, but this time she wiped them away quickly. If Uncle Biora is telling the truth, then I deserve to know who I really am. She became quiet for a moment before continuing firmly. But if he's lying, then I will find the truth. She slowly stood beside the window and looked out into the quiet Lagos night. "Daddy," she whispered quietly, "I know you loved me. I know you would never leave me without a reason. I don't know what really happened, but I promise you this." She clenched her fists with determination. "I will stop crying, I will stop feeling sorry for myself, and I will do everything possible to discover the truth behind what happened, because I believe with all my heart that you would never intentionally leave me helpless." Several days passed after Amanda made the decision to stop crying and begin to search for the truth. Although she still missed her father deeply, something inside her had changed. Instead of spending every hour in tears, she now spent her time thinking carefully about everything that had happened. She kept asking herself the same question over and over again. If Daddy truly knew I was not his biological daughter, why would he never tell me? Every time she asked herself that question, she remembered the love in his eyes, the way he proudly introduced her as his daughter, and the countless times he had called her my adorable. Nothing about those memories matched what Obiora had claimed. One evening, after eating a simple dinner with Zina, Amanda sat quietly on the small bed inside the apartment. The room was silent except for the sound of the ceiling fan slowly turning above them. Zina looked at her friend and smiled gently. "You have been thinking all day." Amanda nodded. "I cannot stop thinking." "About your father?" Zina asked. Amanda sighed. "Yes, something is not right. I feel it in my heart." Zina placed her hand on Amanda's shoulder. "Sometimes the heart notices what the eyes cannot see." Amanda looked at her. "I just wish Daddy were here to explain everything." Zina smiled softly. "Maybe one day the truth will find its way to you." Amanda managed a weak smile before lying down on the bed. "I hope so." The two friends switched off the light, said their goodnights, and slowly fell asleep. Sometime during the middle of the night, Amanda suddenly found herself standing inside a dream. She was no longer inside Zina's apartment. Instead, she was standing in the beautiful garden of the Ojukwu mansion, where she and her father had spent countless evenings together. The flowers were blooming brightly, the fountain was flowing gently, and everything looked peaceful. Amanda looked around in confusion. "Where am I?" she whispered. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "My adorable." Amanda's heart skipped a beat. She turned around immediately. Standing a few steps away was Chief Ojukwu, wearing one of his favorite white suits and smiling gently, just as he always had during his lifetime. Tears immediately filled Amanda's eyes. "Daddy!" she cried as she ran toward him. She tried to hug him, but somehow she could not reach him. It was as though an invisible space stood between them. Amanda began to cry. "Daddy, I miss you so much." Chief Ojukwu smiled warmly. "I know, my adorable." Amanda wiped her tears. "Daddy, tell me the truth. Was Uncle Obiora right? Am I really not your daughter?" Chief Ojukwu did not answer the question directly. Instead, he looked at her calmly and said, "The truth has never left you." Amanda looked confused. "What do you mean?" Chief Ojukwu slowly raised his right hand and pointed toward her. "Many years ago, I gave you something important to keep." Amanda frowned as she tried to remember. "Something important?" Chief Ojukwu nodded. "Yes, the old brown A4 envelope." Amanda suddenly looked surprised. "The brown envelope?" Chief Ojukwu smiled. "Yes." Amanda tried to think harder. "I remember you gave me many documents when I finished university." Chief Ojukwu gently shook his head. "No, before that." Amanda closed her eyes, searching her memory. Suddenly, she remembered. Years ago, while helping her father arrange some old family documents, he had handed her a brown envelope. "Keep this safely," he had said. "One day it may become very important." Amanda had placed it among her personal documents and completely forgotten about it over the years. Chief Ojukwu looked at her lovingly. "Go and find it." Amanda stared at him. "Is the truth inside?" He smiled gently. "Everything you need to know begins there." Amanda stretched out her hand desperately. "Daddy, don't go. Please stay." Chief Ojukwu smiled one last time. "Be brave, my adorable." Slowly, his image began to fade. "Daddy!" Amanda shouted. "Daddy!" Suddenly, Amanda opened her eyes. She was breathing heavily. Sweat covered her face and her heart was beating fast. The room was still dark. Beside her, Zina immediately sat up. "Amanda," she asked, "what happened?" Amanda looked around in confusion before realizing she was back inside the apartment. I had a dream. Zina switched on the small bedside lamp. You were shouting. Amanda quickly grabbed Zina's hand. I saw my father. Zina looked surprised. You saw him? Amanda nodded excitedly. He spoke to me. Zina listened carefully. What did he say? Amanda replied without hesitation. He reminded me about an old brown A4 envelope he gave me many years ago. Zina frowned. An envelope? Amanda nodded repeatedly. Yes, he told me the truth begins there. Zina looked at Amanda seriously. Do you know where it is? Amanda suddenly stood up from the bed. I think I do. Without wasting another second, she hurried toward the oldest trolley bag she had brought from the mansion. It was the same old bag she had used during her university days. She had packed it in a hurry when leaving the mansion and had not opened it since arriving at Zina's apartment. Amanda quickly placed the trolley bag on the floor. Help me, she said. Zina immediately knelt beside her. Let's search carefully. Amanda unzipped the bag and began removing everything one after another. She found old textbooks from secondary school, university notebooks, graduation certificates, childhood birthday cards, and neatly arranged school reports. She smiled sadly as she picked up an old photograph showing herself sitting on Chief Ojuku's shoulders when she was a little girl. Look at this, Amanda whispered. Zina smiled warmly. He looked so happy. Amanda gently touched the photograph before placing it aside. They continued searching. Amanda removed more family photographs, old diaries, greeting cards, newspaper cuttings about her father's business achievements, and several important certificates. Time passed slowly as the pile of documents beside them continued growing larger. After almost 30 minutes, Amanda sighed deeply. Maybe I imagined the dream. Zina shook her head firmly. No, keep searching. Amanda nodded and continued emptying the bag. Suddenly, her fingers touched something rough at the very bottom of the trolley. She froze. Wait. Zina looked at her. What is it? Amanda slowly pulled out a dusty brown A4 envelope that looked very old. Dust covered the surface, showing that it had not been opened for many years. Amanda stared at it with wide eyes. This is it. Zina looked amazed. The envelope from your dream? Amanda nodded slowly. Yes. Her hands began trembling. This is the same envelope Daddy gave me years ago. She gently wiped away the dust before carefully opening it. Inside were several folded documents, old certificates, handwritten letters, and sealed papers. Amanda took a deep breath. Let's see what Daddy wanted me to find. She slowly removed the first document. It was her original birth record from the hospital where she had been born. Amanda examined it carefully. This is my birth certificate. Zina leaned closer. What does it say? Amanda looked at every detail before shaking her head. Nothing unusual. She placed it aside and picked up another document. Then another. Some contained old hospital records, while others were legal papers with official stamps. Suddenly, Amanda stopped moving. Zina, she whispered. Look at this. Zina moved closer. Amanda unfolded an old legal document. The title immediately caught her attention. She began reading aloud. Adoption records. Her eyes widened. Adoption? Zina asked. Amanda quickly continued reading. With every sentence, her breathing became faster. After several minutes, Amanda slowly lowered the document. She looked completely shocked. It says, her voice trembled, it says Uncle Obiora is not Daddy's biological brother. Zina looked stoned. What? Amanda nodded. These papers say that Obiora's biological parents died in a terrible car accident when he was still a baby. She continued reading carefully. After the accident, my grandparents adopted him and raised him as their own son. Zina covered her mouth in surprise. So Obiora was adopted? Amanda nodded again. Yes. Tears filled her eyes once more. Then why did he accuse me of not being Daddy's daughter? Amanda quickly searched through the remaining documents. Inside the envelope were several handwritten letters exchanged between her grandparents and several legal papers confirming the adoption. One letter explained why the family had decided to keep the adoption secret to protect Obiora from discrimination while he was growing up. Amanda carefully placed the letters on the floor. Daddy kept all this safely for years. Zina picked up another folded paper. Amanda, there is more. Amanda quickly took the paper and began reading. It mentioned only one surviving person who knew every detail of the family's hidden history. Amanda read the name aloud slowly. Mazi Ume. She paused. The younger brother of my late grandfather. Zina looked at her. Is he still alive? Amanda nodded while continuing to read. According to this letter, yes, he still lives quietly in our ancestral village. Amanda suddenly became quiet. Memories from childhood slowly returned to her mind. I remember him. Zina looked curious. You do? Amanda smiled faintly through her tears. When I was little, an elderly man used to visit our house from the village. He always brought me sweets and small gifts. Daddy treated him with so much respect. Amanda closed her eyes as more memories returned. She opened her eyes again. I have not seen him in many years. Zina smiled hopefully. If he knows the truth, then maybe he can help you. Amanda looked down at the document spread across the floor. For the first time since losing her father, the heavy darkness inside her heart began to lift. She realized that perhaps her father had not abandoned her after all. Perhaps he had been preparing for a day like this without her even knowing. Amanda carefully gathered the documents back into the brown envelope and held it tightly against her chest. Tears rolled down her face once again, but this time they were no longer tears of hopelessness. They were tears of renewed hope. Because for the first time since Obiora destroyed her world, Amanda finally believed that the truth was still alive, and that somewhere in a quiet village, an elderly man named Mazi Ume might hold the final key that could expose every lie and change her life forever. The first rays of the morning sun entered the small apartment through the window as Amanda slowly opened her eyes. Unlike the previous mornings, there was something different about her. For the first time in many days, hope had replaced the deep sadness that had filled her heart. She looked at the old brown envelope lying safely on the small table beside the bed and remembered every word she had read the previous night. She quickly got out of bed and carefully picked up the envelope. She held it tightly against her chest and whispered softly, Daddy, I think you have been guiding me all this time. I promise I will not stop until I know the whole truth. Zina also woke up and smiled when she saw the determination on Amanda's face. Good morning, Zina said. Amanda smiled back. Good morning. Zina stretched her arms before asking, Did you sleep at all? Amanda nodded. A little. Then she looked at the envelope again. I kept thinking about Maziume. Zina walked closer. Then there is only one thing left to do. Amanda nodded confidently. We have to go to the village today. Without wasting any more time, the two young women quickly prepared themselves. Zina made a simple breakfast of bread and tea, but Amanda was too eager to eat much. She only took a few bites before standing up. Let's go. Zina smiled. You have not sounded this determined in a long time. Amanda replied, For the first time since Daddy died, I feel like I am finally moving in the right direction. They packed the brown envelope carefully into Amanda's handbag, locked the apartment, and left for the bus park. The journey from Lagos to the village was long. As the bus moved farther away from the busy city, the tall buildings slowly disappeared, giving way to green fields, rivers, farms, and quiet villages. Amanda sat quietly by the window, watching the beautiful countryside pass by. Every now and then, she remembered visiting the village as a little girl with her father. She remembered running around barefoot with other children, eating fresh fruits from the trees, and laughing as elderly relatives blessed her. A small smile appeared on her face. Zina noticed. What are you thinking about? Amanda looked outside. I came here many years ago with Daddy. I was still very young. Zina smiled. Do you remember Maziume clearly? Amanda nodded slowly. Not very clearly, but I remember he always smiled whenever he saw me. Zina looked at her encouragingly. Then I believe he will be happy to see you again. After several hours of traveling, the bus finally arrived at the village. Amanda stepped down and looked around. Although many years had passed, some places still looked familiar. The fresh air, the quiet roads, the singing birds, and the peaceful atmosphere reminded her of childhood. She took a deep breath. It feels like time stopped here. Zina smiled. It is beautiful. Amanda nodded. Yes. She asked a few elderly villagers for directions to Maziome's house. One old woman smiled warmly after hearing the name. Oh, Maziome still lives at the end of that road, she said while pointing ahead. Thank you, Amanda replied politely. The two young friends walked slowly along the narrow village path until they reached a simple but neat compound surrounded by flowers and fruit trees. An elderly man sat outside under the shade of a large mango tree, reading an old newspaper with a pair of glasses resting on his nose. His hair had turned completely white, but his face still showed strength and kindness. Amanda stopped. Her heart suddenly began beating faster. That must be him, she whispered. Zina gently squeezed her hand. Go. Amanda slowly walked toward the elderly man. Before she could say anything, the old man looked up from his newspaper. For a few seconds, he simply stared at her face. Then his eyes widened with surprise. Slowly, he stood up. Amanda, he whispered. Amanda's eyes immediately filled with tears. Yes, it is me. The old man's face brightened with emotion. My goodness. He slowly walked toward her. Come here, my child. Amanda hugged him tightly as Maziome held her close as tears filled his own eyes. Look at you, he said softly. You have grown into such a beautiful young woman. Amanda smiled through her tears. It has been so many years. Maziome nodded. The last time I saw you, you were still a little girl running around this compound. He looked behind Amanda. And who is this? Amanda smiled. This is my best friend, Zina. Zina greeted him respectfully. Good afternoon, sir. Maziome smiled warmly. You are welcome, my daughter. He invited both of them inside his house. The sitting room was simple but clean, filled with old family photographs hanging on the walls. After serving them cold water, Maziome smiled kindly. Now tell me, what brings you here after so many years? Amanda's smile disappeared immediately. She lowered her head. Maziome noticed the sadness on her face. What is wrong? He asked gently. Amanda struggled to speak. Tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. Daddy is gone. The old man's smile instantly disappeared. What? Amanda nodded while crying. He died in a plane crash. Maziome slowly removed his glasses and lowered his head. Oh no, he sighed deeply. May his soul rest in peace. Amanda continued crying. After his burial, something terrible happened. Maziome looked at her with concern. Tell me everything. Amanda began from the beginning. She explained how Obiora had gathered everyone for the reading of the will. She described how he interrupted the meeting, claimed she was not Chief Ojuku's biological daughter, presented documents, and forced her to leave the mansion. She explained how she had moved into Zina's small apartment and how she later found the old brown envelope after dreaming about her father. Finally, she carefully removed the envelope from her handbag and placed it on the table. Maziome quietly opened it and began reading the documents one after the other. As he continued reading, his face gradually became filled with anger. Finally, he slammed one document gently onto the table. This wicked man, he exclaimed. Amanda looked at him anxiously. So, it is true? Maziome looked directly into her eyes. Every single word inside these documents is true. Amanda leaned forward. Please, tell me everything. The old man took a deep breath before speaking slowly. Many years ago, before you were born, there was a terrible car accident. Amanda listened carefully. The accident claimed the lives of a young husband and wife. They left behind only one child, a baby boy. Amanda whispered, Obiora? Maziome nodded. Yes. Amanda remained silent. Your grandparents felt sorry for the little boy. They could not bear to see him grow up without parents, so they adopted him into the family. Amanda listened without interrupting. Your father accepted him completely as his younger brother. They raised him with love. They gave him food, clothing, education, and every opportunity he needed. Amanda shook her head slowly in disbelief. Daddy never told me any of this. Mazume smiled sadly. Because your grandparents made everyone promise to keep it a secret. Amanda frowned. Why? They feared that if people discovered Obiora was adopted, some wicked people might discriminate against him or make him feel different. Amanda sighed deeply. So, Daddy protected him all those years? Mazume nodded yes. Amanda looked down at the floor. And this is how he repaid him? Mazume's expression became serious. Greed can make people forget every act of kindness they have ever received. Amanda wiped away another tear. How could he do something so cruel? The old man shook his head sadly. Money changes some people. He slowly stood up. Wait here. Amanda and Zina watched him walk toward an old wooden cabinet standing in one corner of the room. He reached into his pocket, removed a small key, and unlocked it carefully. After searching inside for several moments, he pulled out a thick old file covered in dust. He returned to the table and gently placed it before Amanda. I have been keeping this safe for many years. Amanda looked at the old file curiously. Mazume slowly opened it. Inside were neatly arranged documents, faded photographs, handwritten letters, newspaper cuttings, and legal papers. Amanda gasped softly. These are... Mazume nodded. The original family records. He picked up an old black and white photograph and handed it to Amanda. She stared at it closely. It showed a smiling young couple holding a baby in their arms. Who are they? Amanda asked. Those are Obiora's biological parents, Mazume replied quietly. Amanda looked at the baby. And this is Obiora when he was only a few months old. Amanda looked at the picture for a long moment before carefully placing it back. Mazume then handed her another document. This is the original adoption record signed by your grandparents. Amanda examined the paper carefully. It carried official stamps and signatures. Zina looked amazed. These papers are much older than the ones inside the brown envelope. Mazume nodded. Because these are the originals. He continued removing more documents. These are handwritten letters from your grandfather explaining why the family decided to keep the adoption secret. Amanda carefully read a few lines before tears filled her eyes again. Daddy protected Obiora all his life, she whispered. Yes, Mazume replied sadly. And now Obiora is trying to destroy your father's only child. The room became quiet for several moments. Finally, Amanda looked up. What do I do now? Mazume smiled confidently. You fight. Amanda looked uncertain. But Obiora has powerful lawyers. Mazume gently closed the old file. Truth more powerful than lies. Amanda remained silent. Mazume looked directly into her eyes. I am old now, but I have lived long enough to know one thing. Amanda waited patiently. A lie may run fast, he said calmly, but the truth always catches up. Amanda felt tears filling her eyes again. Mazume placed his hand gently on hers. You are not alone anymore. Amanda looked at him. You believe me? Mazume smiled warmly. I do not only believe you. He carefully pushed the old family file toward her. I will stand beside you. Amanda blinked in surprise. You will? Mazume nodded firmly. Yes. I will personally come to court with you. I will tell the judge everything I know. I will present every document, every photograph, every letter, and every legal record that has been hidden for decades. I will not allow your father's kindness to be repaid with betrayal. No matter how long this legal battle takes, I will stand beside you until justice is served. The morning after Amanda and Zina returned from the village, the atmosphere inside Zina's small apartment was completely different from what it had been only a few weeks earlier. Amanda was no longer the broken young woman who had cried herself to sleep every night after being forced out of her father's mansion. The pain of losing Chief Ojukwu was still in her heart, but now that pain had been replaced with determination. She carefully placed the old brown envelope on the small table and looked at the thick family file Maziume had been in her before they left the village. Every document inside those files represented hope. Every photograph, every handwritten letter, every legal paper, and every adoption record brought her one step closer to exposing the truth. Amanda looked at Zina and smiled for the first time in many days. "I finally understand what Daddy was trying to do," she said quietly. Zina smiled back. "He knew that one day these documents might save you." Amanda nodded. "He trusted me with them without even telling me why." She gently touched the brown envelope. "Even after his death, he is still protecting me." Zina placed her hand over Amanda's. "Now it is your turn to protect his name." Amanda looked at her with confidence. "And I will." After breakfast, Amanda and Zina traveled to the office of one of the most respected lawyers in Lagos. His name was Mr. Richard Benson, a man well known for handling difficult family and inheritance cases. His office was located inside a modern glass building in the business district of Lagos. As they entered the reception area, Amanda felt nervous. Zina noticed immediately. "You can do this," she whispered. Amanda nodded slowly. A few minutes later, the secretary smiled and said, "Mr. Benson is ready to see you." Amanda and Zina walked into the spacious office. Mr. Benson stood up immediately to welcome them. "Good morning," he said politely. Amanda shook his hand. "Good morning, sir. Please have a seat." Amanda sat down and carefully placed both the brown envelope and the old family file on his desk. Mr. Benson looked at them curiously. "How may I help you?" Amanda took a deep breath before explaining everything from the beginning. She spoke about her father's death, the reading of the will, Obiora's shocking accusation, her eviction from the mansion, the dream about the brown envelope, the journey to the village, and Maziome's explanation. Mr. Benson listened carefully without interrupting. When Amanda finished speaking, he slowly opened the files and began reading every document one after another. Nearly 1 hour passed as he examined each paper carefully. Finally, he removed his glasses and looked directly at Amanda. "Miss Amanda," he said calmly, "these documents are extremely important." Amanda leaned forward. "Can they help me?" Mr. Benson smiled confidently. "They can do much more than help you." Amanda looked hopeful. "Really?" He nodded. "If these original documents are genuine, and from everything I have seen, they appear to be, then your uncle has committed a very serious act." Amanda swallowed nervously. "What should we do?" Mr. Benson closed the file firmly. "We will file a lawsuit immediately." Amanda looked at Zina, and the two friends smiled. "Will we win?" Amanda asked quietly. Mr. Benson answered honestly. "No lawyer can promise victory before entering a courtroom." He paused before continuing. "But I can promise you this." Amanda listened carefully. "The truth is on your side." Amanda felt tears gathering in her eyes again. "Thank you." Mr. Benson smiled kindly. "We will fight this properly." Throughout the rest of the day, Amanda signed legal papers while Mr. Benson prepared the official lawsuit. The case accused Obiora of fraud, forgery, deception, and unlawful attempt to seize property that did not belong to him. Copies of the legal documents were submitted to the court before evening. Within only a few days, the news spread rapidly across Lagos. Newspapers carried bold headlines. Television stations discussed the shocking family dispute. Radio presenters debated the case during morning programs. Social media became flooded with different opinions. Some people believed Amanda had been treated unfairly. Others waited patiently to hear both sides before reaching a conclusion. Inside restaurants, offices, buses, and marketplaces, people talked about nothing else. One man said while reading a newspaper, "Can you imagine trying to throw your own niece out of her father's house?" Another replied, "Let us wait until the court decides." Television reporters stood outside the Ojukwu mansion reporting the latest developments. One reporter spoke into her microphone. "The legal battle over the late Chief Ojukwu's multi-billion naira estate has now officially begun." The entire city seemed to be watching. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Obiora sat angrily in the living room holding one of the newspapers. His hands trembled with anger as he read the headline. "Amanda filed multi-billion naira lawsuit against uncle." He threw the newspaper on the floor. "Impossible," he shouted. Agatha quickly entered the room. "What happened?" Obiora pointed angrily at the newspaper. "She has taken me to court." Agatha quickly picked up the paper and read it. Her face slowly became worried. "She actually hired a lawyer?" Obiora nodded angrily. "Yes." Agatha looked frightened. "What if—" she hesitated. "What if she has found something?" Obiora immediately interrupted. "She has nothing." But despite his confident words, fear had already begun to grow inside his heart. That evening, Obiora walked nervously around the sitting room. Agatha watched him carefully. "You have been restless all day." Obiora stopped walking. "Something does not feel right." Agatha looked at him. "Why?" He lowered his voice. "Amanda was too calm after leaving the mansion." Agatha frowned. "She cried every day." Obiora nodded. "Yes, but suddenly she has gone to court." He became quiet for a few moments. "That means she believes she has evidence." Agatha slowly sat down. "Do you think someone told her the truth?" Obiora immediately shook his head. "No." But even as he spoke, he remembered one person, Mazi Ume. His face suddenly became pale. "No," he whispered to himself. Agatha looked confused. "What is it?" Obiora did not answer. Instead, he quickly walked toward the window. "It cannot be," he whispered. Back inside Zena's apartment, Amanda continued preparing for the legal battle. Every evening, she carefully studied every document with Mr. Benson. Zena remained beside her throughout the process, encouraging her whenever she became tired. One afternoon, Amanda sighed deeply. "Sometimes I still miss Daddy so much." Zena gently smiled. "He would be proud of how strong you have become." Amanda looked at the old family photograph lying on the table. "I hope so." Zena pointed at it. "He raised a brave daughter." Amanda smiled softly. "Not long ago, I thought my life had ended." Zena laughed gently. "Now look at you." Amanda nodded confidently. "Now I know that giving up would only help wicked people succeed." Meanwhile, several villages away, Maziume carefully prepared for the coming court case. Every morning, he opened the old family file and carefully arranged every document in order. He placed the adoption papers inside protective folders. He cleaned the old photographs and carefully labeled each one. He arranged the handwritten letters according to their dates and even wrote notes explaining each document so that the court could understand them clearly. One afternoon, a neighbor visited him. "Maziume," the man asked, "why have you been working so hard every day?" Maziume smiled gently. "Because the truth deserves to be protected." The neighbor nodded. "Are you really traveling to Lagos?" "Yes." "At your age?" Maziume smiled confidently. "As long as I can still stand, I will stand for justice." Back in Lagos, Amanda received an unexpected phone call one evening. She looked at the screen. The number was unknown. "Hello?" she answered. A cold voice replied, "Amanda." She immediately recognized it. "Uncle Obiora." His voice remained calm but threatening. "So, you have decided to take me to court?" Amanda answered firmly. "Yes." Obiora laughed quietly. "You are making a very big mistake." Amanda remained silent. He continued, "Withdraw the lawsuit." Amanda asked calmly, "Why should I?" Obiora's voice became colder. "Because if you do not," he paused briefly, "you will regret it." Amanda held the phone tightly but refused to let fear control her. "Are you threatening me?" Obiora replied without hesitation, "Take it however you like." Amanda answered firmly, "I am not withdrawing anything." Obiora laughed again. "You still think you can win?" Amanda replied confidently, "The truth always wins." Obiora's voice became angry. You have no idea what you are getting yourself into. Amanda answered, No, uncle, it is you who has no idea. Before Obiora could respond, Amanda calmly ended the call. She slowly lowered the phone and took a deep breath. Zina looked worried. Was that him? Amanda nodded. He threatened me. Zina immediately became concerned. Are you all right? Amanda smiled confidently. Yes. Zina looked surprised. You are not afraid? Amanda shook her head. I was afraid before. She gently touched the brown envelope lying on the table. Not anymore. Zina smiled proudly. You have changed. Amanda nodded. Daddy always taught me that courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what is right even when you are afraid. Meanwhile, Obiora stood inside his own living room staring at his phone after Amanda ended the call. His hands were shaking slightly. Agatha walked over. What did she say? Obiora frowned deeply. She refused. Agatha's face immediately fell. Now what? Obiora remained silent. For the first time since beginning his wicked plan, he felt genuine fear. Every passing day brought the court hearing closer, and every passing day reminded him that the truth he had buried for decades might soon be exposed before the whole world. While fear slowly consumed Obiora's heart, Amanda grew stronger with each new sunrise. The frightened young woman who had once left her father's mansion in tears had now become a determined, confident and courageous daughter, ready to defend not only her rightful inheritance, but also the good name and legacy of the father who had loved her with all his heart. The day Amanda had been waiting for finally arrived. Before the sun rose over Lagos, she was already awake inside Zina's small apartment. She could hardly sleep the previous night because she knew that the court hearing would determine the future of her father's name, his legacy, and everything he had worked for all his life. She quietly sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the old brown envelope and the family file lying neatly on the small table. Those documents had become more than just pieces of paper. They had become the symbol of hope, truth, and justice. Amanda closed her eyes for a moment and whispered softly, Daddy, wherever you are, please give me strength today. Zina, who had also woken up early, smiled gently as she walked over and placed a hand on Amanda's shoulder. Today is your day, she said quietly. Amanda smiled faintly. I am nervous. Zina nodded. That is normal. Amanda looked at her friend. What if something goes wrong? Zina gently shook her head. Nothing will go wrong. You are fighting with the truth, not with lies. Amanda took a deep breath and stood up. Then I am ready. A few hours later, Amanda, Zina, and their lawyer, Mr. Richard Benson, arrived at the Lagos High Court. Standing near the entrance was Maziume, dressed neatly in a simple traditional outfit, with the old family file carefully held in his hands. Despite his age, he stood proudly with confidence. When Amanda saw him, she smiled warmly. Good morning, Maziume. The elderly man smiled back. Good morning, my daughter. Amanda hugged him gently. Thank you for coming. Maziume patted her shoulder. I promised your father many years ago that I would always protect this family if the need ever arose. Today, I intend to keep that promise. Amanda's eyes filled with grateful tears. Thank you. Mr. Benson looked at everyone confidently. Let us go inside. As they entered the courthouse, Amanda was surprised by the large crowd waiting inside. The courtroom was almost completely full. Journalists carried cameras and notebooks, eager to report every moment of the case. Business associates who had once worked with Chief Ojukwu occupied several seats. Relatives sat quietly on one side of the courtroom. Curious members of the public also attended because the case had become one of the most talked about legal battles in Lagos. Everyone whispered amongst themselves as Amanda walked inside. "That is Amanda," someone quietly said. "She looks so calm." Another replied, "I wonder who will win." Across the courtroom stood Obiora, wearing an expensive black suit. Beside him stood Agatha, looking nervous despite trying to appear confident. Their lawyer organized several files on the table, while Obiora occasionally glanced towards Amanda. The confidence he had displayed weeks earlier had completely disappeared. His face looked tired, and dark circles surrounded his eyes from many sleepless nights. Amanda looked directly at him for a brief moment before calmly taking her seat beside her lawyer. Obiora quickly looked away. A few minutes later, the court clerk stood up. "All rise." Everyone immediately stood as the judge entered the courtroom and took his seat. "Please be seated," the judge said calmly. The room became completely silent. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked through the case file before speaking. "Today, we begin hearing the matter concerning the estate of the late Chief Ojukwu." He looked towards both legal teams. "Are both sides ready?" Mr. Benson stood confidently. "Yes, my lord." Obiora's lawyer also stood. "Yes, my lord." The judge nodded. "Very well. Let us begin." Mr. Benson rose first. "My lord," he began respectfully, "this case concerns a deliberate attempt by the defendant, Mr. Obiora, to unlawfully seize the estate of his late brother by falsely claiming that Miss Amanda is not Chief Ojukwu's biological daughter, and that the defendant himself is not the biological brother of the deceased, but was adopted into the family many years ago." Murmurs spread across the courtroom. The judge immediately looked around. "Order!" Everyone became silent again. Mr. Benson continued, "We have original family documents, adoption records, handwritten letters, photographs, and eyewitness testimony supporting every statement we are about to present." He sat down. Obiora's lawyer immediately stood up. "My lord," he said confidently, "the defense maintains that the documents previously presented by my client clearly establish that Amanda has no biological relation with the late Chief Ojukwu and therefore has no legal right to inherit his estate." The judge nodded. "Very well." He looked towards Mr. Benson. "Call your first witness." Mr. Benson stood. "My first witness is Miss Amanda." Amanda slowly walked towards the witness stand. She placed her hand on the Bible and took the oath to tell the truth. Mr. Benson smiled reassuringly. "Amanda," he began gently, "please tell this court about your relationship with your late father." Amanda took a deep breath. "Chief Ojukwu raised me from birth. He loved me with all his heart. He educated me, cared for me, and prepared me one day to manage his businesses." "Did he ever tell you that you are not his biological daughter?" "Never." "Did he leave anything in your care before his death?" Amanda nodded. "Yes." She carefully removed the old brown envelope from her handbag. "Many years ago, my father gave me this envelope and told me to keep it safely because one day it might become important." Mr. Benson accepted the envelope and handed it to the judge. "My lord, these are the confidential documents entrusted by my client by his late father." The judge carefully examined them while the courtroom remained silent. Mr. Benson continued asking Amanda several questions about the dream that reminded her of the envelope, her discovery of the documents, and her visit to Maziume. When he finished, Obiora's lawyer stood for cross-examination. "Miss Amanda," he asked, "are you saying your dream should be accepted as evidence?" Amanda answered calmly, "No, the dream only reminded me where my father had kept the documents. The documents speak for themselves." Several people in the courtroom nodded quietly. Obiora's lawyer asked a few more questions but failed to shake Amanda's confidence. "No further questions," he finally said before sitting down. Mr. Benson immediately called his next witness. The plaintiff calls Maziume. The elderly man slowly walked toward the witness stand. Everyone watched respectfully as he took the oath. Mr. Benson smiled warmly. "Sir, please introduce yourself to the court." "My name is Maziume. I am the younger brother of Chief Ojukwu's late father." "How well did you know the family?" Maziume smiled sadly. I knew everything about the family because I grew up with them. Mr. Benson nodded. Can't you explain to the court who Obiora really is? Maziume took a deep breath. Many years ago, a terrible car accident killed the biological parents of a baby boy named Obiora. My brother and his wife felt sorry for the helpless child. They legally adopted him and raised him as their own son. The courtroom became completely silent. Maziume continued. Chief Ojukwu accepted Obiora as his younger brother and loved him exactly as family. The adoption was kept secret to protect Obiora from discrimination while growing up. Mr. Benson carefully opened the old family file. My lord, these are the original adoption papers, family photographs, handwritten letters, and legal records that have remained in the family's possession for decades. One by one, he presented every document to the judge. The adoption certificate was examined carefully. Old photographs showing baby Obiora with his biological parents were displayed before the court. Handwritten letters from Amanda's grandparents explaining the adoption were read aloud. Every new document weakened Obiora's defense. Maziume then identified every photograph personally, explaining the names, dates, and events shown in each picture. Finally, he looked directly toward Obiora. Instead of showing gratitude to the family that raised him, he chose greed. Obiora immediately lowered his head. His lawyer attempted to challenge Maziume's testimony, but the elderly man answered every question calmly and confidently. His memory remained sharp despite his age. The judge listened attentively throughout. After hearing both legal teams, examining all the documents and listening to every witness, the judge leaned back thoughtfully. The courtroom became completely silent as everyone waited for his decision. Finally, the judge spoke. This court has carefully considered the evidence presented by both sides. He paused briefly. However, because this case concerns biological relationships that directly affect inheritance, this court believes there is one final step necessary to remove every possible doubt. Everyone waited anxiously. This court hereby orders an official DNA test between Amanda and the late Chief Ojukwu, using legally approved biological samples already preserved in accordance with hospital and legal procedures. Murmurs immediately spread throughout the courtroom. The judge raised his hand. Order! Silence returned. Once the DNA results are available, this court shall reconvene for final judgment. The hearing was adjourned. Several days passed as everyone waited anxiously for the laboratory to complete its work. Newspapers published daily updates. Television stations discussed possible outcomes. Amanda remained calm, although she silently prayed every day. Zina encouraged her constantly. The truth has already come this far, she reminded her. It will finish the journey. Finally, the day arrived for the court to reconvene. Once again, the courtroom was completely filled. Everyone stood as the judge entered. He held a sealed envelope in his hand. The room became so quiet that even the sound of papers turning could be heard. The judge carefully opened the envelope and began reading the official laboratory report. Amanda held Zina's hand tightly. Across the room, Obiora wiped sweat from his forehead. After reading silently for several moments, the judge looked up. The official DNA report has now been received. Every person in the courtroom waited anxiously. The judge spoke clearly. The results confirm beyond every reasonable doubt that Amanda is the biological daughter of the late Chief Ojukwu. The courtroom immediately erupted with loud reactions. Journalists hurriedly wrote notes. Some people gasped in surprise. Others smiled with relief. Amanda immediately burst into tears as Zina hugged her tightly. Maziume quietly closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." Across the courtroom, Obiora froze completely. The color disappeared from his face. His hands began shaking uncontrollably as the full weight of the truth crashed down upon him. Every lie he had carefully planned, every false document he had relied upon, and every wicked scheme he had created collapsed completely before the eyes of the court, leaving him speechless, humiliated, and utterly disgraced. The courtroom remained completely silent after the judge announced that the DNA test had confirmed Amanda was the biological daughter of the late Chief Ojukwu. Amanda stood frozen for a few seconds as tears rolled freely down her cheeks. She covered her mouth with both hands because she could not believe the nightmare that had troubled her for so many weeks was finally coming to an end. Zina immediately embraced her tightly. "I told you," she whispered through her own tears. "The truth always wins." Amanda hugged her friend tightly and cried with relief. "Thank you for never leaving me," she said. "If you had not stood by me, I don't know where I would be today." Zina smiled warmly. "You would have done the same for me." Nearby, Maziume quietly wiped tears from his old eyes before looking up toward the ceiling. "My brother," he whispered softly, "you can finally rest in peace. Your daughter has been vindicated." Across the courtroom, Obiora sat with his head lowered. The confidence he once carried had completely disappeared. Agatha looked frightened as she repeatedly glanced between her husband and the judge. Their lawyer quietly closed his file because he knew there was little left to argue. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked around the courtroom before speaking again. "Order in the court." Everyone immediately became silent. The judge looked directly at Amanda before continuing. "Having carefully examined every piece of evidence presented before this court, including the original family records, eyewitness testimony, legal documents, and the official DNA report, this court has reached its final judgment." Amanda held Zina's hand tightly while listening carefully. The judge continued. "This court officially declares Miss Amanda the only lawful and biological daughter of the late Chief Ojukwu." Amanda lowered her head as fresh tears filled her eyes. The judge continued reading. "Furthermore, this court declares Amanda the sole legal heir to every company, hotel, shopping plaza, office building, residential property, investment, bank account, and every other asset legally belonging to the late Chief Ojukwu." The courtroom burst with loud applause before the judge gently raised his hand for silence. He then turned his attention toward Obiora. His voice became firm. "Mr. Obiora, this court finds that your actions were a deliberate attempt to unlawfully seize property through deception and false claims." Obiora slowly lowered his head even further. The judge continued. "Every claim you made against Amanda is hereby dismissed. You have no legal ownership over any property belonging to the late Chief Ojukwu." Agatha closed her eyes in disappointment, while Obiora remained speechless. The judge added, "This court also orders that neither you nor your wife shall interfere with Amanda, her businesses, or any property belonging to the Ojukwu family. You are forbidden from presenting yourselves as owners or representatives of any of Chief Ojukwu's assets. Any future attempt to interfere with Amanda's lawful inheritance shall attract serious legal consequences." The courtroom became silent once again. The judge finally closed the case file. "This matter is hereby concluded." He struck the gavel. "Court adjourned." Immediately, the courtroom exploded with excitement. Journalists rushed toward Amanda, cameras flashed continuously, and reporters began asking questions all at once. "Amanda, how do you feel? What message do you have for young people who face injustice?" another shouted. Amanda smiled through her tears. "Today is not about celebrating wealth. Today is about celebrating truth. I never stopped believing in my father's love, and I never stopped believing that one day the truth would speak for itself." The reporters quickly wrote down every word. Another journalist asked, "What do you have to say to your uncle?" Amanda became quiet for a moment before answering, "I leave everything to God and to his own conscience." Meanwhile, Obiora and Agatha quietly tried to leave through a side exit to avoid the waiting journalists. As they walked through the courthouse hallway, people looked at them with disappointment. Some shook their heads while others whispered quietly, Obiora avoided making eye contact with anyone. For the first time in his life, he understood that greed had cost him everything. He had not only lost the court case, but had also destroyed his reputation, his dignity, and the trust of everyone who once respected him. Outside the courthouse, Agatha looked at him sadly. "What do we do now?" she asked softly. Obiora stared silently at the ground before speaking. "I wanted everything," he sighed deeply, "and now I have nothing." Agatha wiped away tears. "Maybe we should never have done this." Obiora slowly nodded. "I should have been grateful for the family that raised me, instead of trying to destroy them." His voice was filled with regret. "Greed has ruined my life." While Obiora walked away in shame, Amanda stood outside the courthouse surrounded by the people who had stood beside her from the very beginning. She turned toward Maziume with tears in her eyes. Without saying a word, she gently knelt before the elderly man. Maziume looked surprised. "Amanda, what are you doing?" Amanda took both of his hands. "You protected my father's truth." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You protected me when I had nobody else." Maziume quickly helped her stand. "No, my daughter, I simply did what your father would have done for anyone else." Amanda hugged him tightly. "Thank you." Maziume smiled warmly. "You never needed to thank me. You are family." Amanda then turned towards Zina. For several seconds, she simply looked at her best friend without speaking. Tears filled both their eyes. Finally, Amanda smiled. "Come here." The two friends embraced tightly. Amanda cried quietly. "You gave me a home when I became homeless." Zina smiled. "You needed a sister." Amanda nodded. "Yes." She held Zina's shoulders gently. "You are not just my best friend anymore." Zina looked at her curiously. Amanda smiled. "You are the sister God gave me." Zina immediately burst into tears again. "Amanda!" Amanda hugged her once more. "I will never forget everything you did for me." A few days later, Amanda officially returned to the Ojuku mansion. The large gate slowly opened as her car entered the compound. She looked around with mixed emotions. Everything looked exactly as she had left it. The beautiful flowers still surrounded the fountain. The large white mansion stood proudly beneath the morning sun. But this time, Amanda was returning not as a helpless victim, but as the rightful owner of everything her father had worked so hard to build. As soon as the car stopped, Grace came running outside. Tears filled her eyes immediately. "Amanda!" she cried. Amanda stepped out of the car. Grace rushed forward and hugged her tightly. "Welcome home." Amanda smiled warmly. "Thank you, Grace." Esther quickly joined them. "We missed you so much." Musa removed his cap respectfully. "Welcome back, Miss Amanda." Kunle smiled proudly. "The house has been waiting for you." Amanda looked at each of them one after another. Grace suddenly lowered her head. "Please forgive us." Amanda looked confused. "Forgive you?" Grace nodded sadly. "We obeyed Obiora while you were gone." Esther also lowered her head. "We were afraid of losing our jobs." Musa spoke quietly. "Please do not think we betrayed you." Kunle sighed. "Our hearts were always with you." Amanda smiled gently. "Please look at me." They slowly raised their heads. Amanda continued. "I know every one of you." She smiled warmly. "I know you acted out of fear, not hatred." Grace's eyes filled with tears again. Amanda reached out and held her hand. "I forgive all of you." The four staff members smiled with relief before thanking her repeatedly. Amanda then walked slowly into the mansion. She entered the large living room where so much pain had begun during the reading of the will. She looked around quietly before walking toward her father's favorite chair. She gently touched it before whispering, "Daddy, I came home." Tears rolled softly down her cheeks. "I kept my promise." After a few moments of silent reflection, Amanda stood up confidently. The following weeks became very busy. Amanda resumed leadership of her father's companies with the support of trusted managers who had remained loyal to Chief Ojukwu throughout the years. At first, many employees worried that she might not be experienced enough to lead such a large business empire. However, Amanda quickly proved them wrong. She remembered every lesson her father had taught her during those peaceful evenings in the garden. She treated workers with kindness, listened before making decisions, rewarded honesty, and encouraged hard work. Soon, the businesses began growing even stronger than before. Employees admired her humility. One elderly worker smiled during a staff meeting. "You lead exactly like your father." Amanda smiled warmly. "Everything I know came from him." Business partners who had worked with Chief Ojukwu also noticed Amanda's wisdom. One investor said after a successful meeting, "Your father prepared you very well." Amanda nodded proudly. He believed in teaching instead of merely giving wealth. Outside the business world, Amanda never forgot those who had stood beside her during her darkest days. One afternoon, she invited Mazi Ume to the mansion. After lunch, she handed him a small envelope. Mazi Ume looked surprised. "What is this?" Amanda smiled. "It is a monthly allowance for your comfort." The old man immediately shook his head. "No, my daughter, I did not help you because I wanted money." Amanda smiled gently. "I know." She held his hand lovingly. "This is not payment. This is my way of caring for you the way you cared for me." Maziume smiled with gratitude and accepted the gift. A few days later, Amanda invited Zina to the mansion. As they sat together in the same beautiful garden where Amanda and her father had once spent countless evenings, Amanda smiled. "Close your eyes." Zina laughed. "Why?" Amanda smiled playfully. "Just trust me." Zina closed her eyes. Amanda placed a set of keys into her hands. "Open them." Zina slowly opened her eyes and looked at the keys. "Whose keys are these?" Amanda smiled brightly. "Yours." Zina looked confused. Amanda pointed toward a file on the table. "I have transferred ownership of one of my apartment buildings to you." Zina immediately stood up in shock. "Amanda, no!" Amanda smiled warmly. "Yes." Tears filled Zina's eyes. "I cannot accept this." Amanda gently held her hand. "When everyone else abandoned me, you opened your tiny home to me." She smiled lovingly. "You shared your only bed with me without complaining." Amanda's voice became emotional. "You gave me hope when I had none." Zina cried quietly. Amanda continued. "Nothing I ever give you can equal what you gave me." Zina hugged Amanda tightly. "Thank you." Amanda smiled. Sisters help each other. Time continued to pass peacefully. One afternoon, while attending a business conference in Lagos, Amanda met a young entrepreneur named Ikenna. He was handsome, intelligent, respectful, and hardworking. Unlike many people who admired Amanda because of her wealth, Ikenna admired her because of her strength, kindness, and honesty. After the conference ended, he politely introduced himself. "Good afternoon. My name is Ikenna." Amanda smiled. "Nice to meet you." Their conversation lasted only a few minutes, but both left with great respect for each other. Over the following months, they met several more times during business events and charity projects. Their friendship grew naturally. Ikenna never rushed Amanda or pressured her. Instead, he listened to her, encouraged her dreams, and respected the memory of her late father. One evening, while walking through a beautiful garden after a charity event, Ikenna smiled gently. "Your father would be proud of the woman you have become." Amanda smiled softly. "Thank you." Ikenna looked into his eyes. "Amanda, I have grown to care deeply about you." Amanda looked into his eyes. "I care about you too." Their friendship slowly blossomed into love. Months later, Ikenna visited the mansion with his family to formally ask for Amanda's hand in marriage. Maziume happily represented Amanda's family, proudly giving his blessing. A beautiful wedding was organized, attended by relatives, friends, business associates, and the loyal household staff who had become like family. Grace cried tears of joy as Amanda walked down the aisle. Esther smiled proudly. Musa and Kule welcomed guests with happiness shining on their faces. Zina stood beside Amanda throughout the ceremony, smiling like a true sister. As Amanda and Ikenna exchanged their wedding vows, Amanda quietly looked toward the sky for a brief moment and whispered in her heart, "Daddy, thank you for preparing me for this life." She smiled through joyful tears because she knew her father would have been proud. After their marriage, Amanda and Ikenna built a peaceful and loving home together while successfully managing the Ojukwu business empire. Amanda never allowed wealth to change her character. She continued helping the poor, supporting education, caring for her workers, and honoring the values her father had taught her from childhood. Whenever people asked how she remained so humble after everything she had inherited, Amanda simply smiled and replied, "My father taught me that money can build houses, but only kindness can build a lasting legacy." And so, after surviving heartbreaking loss, painful betrayal, homelessness, false accusations, and a difficult legal battle, Amanda finally found the peace and happiness her father had always wanted for her. Her story became a powerful reminder that truth may be succeeded for a little while, greed may appear to triumph for a season, and evil may seem strong for a moment, but in the end, truth, patience, forgiveness, and justice will always prevail. Lesson: true wealth is not measured by money or property, but by honesty, kindness, integrity, and the legacy we leave behind. Greed, lies, and betrayal may seem to bring temporary success, but they always lead to shame and regret in the end. Amanda's story teaches us to remain patient during difficult times, never give up when faced with injustice, and always seek the truth. It also reminds us to value loyal friends like Zina, appreciate those who stand by us during our darkest moments, and never forget the good people who help us along the way. Above all, the story shows that truth may be delayed, but it can never be permanently hidden, because in the end, justice will always prevail. Thanks for watching this amazing story on African Stories by V. If you liked it and felt inspired, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories by V, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.